And all right, guys, we're back with another one. We're doing our 2012 Dodge Avenger rear brake exchange. You're going to use a 19 millimeter to take off the wheel lug nuts. There should be like 5. Um, and then you should be able to see the brakes and the rotors a little easier. Highly recommended. Not necessary, but if you have some type of penetration and loosen those bolts up, I would use some. I'm only using WD-40, so not the best in the world, but it works. Those are two bolts right there holding our caliber in. That's going to be our 14 millimeter bolt, the top. And that one right there is a doozy. I'm going to explain that one in a second. And then we have the one below it. So with the top one, well, let's work on the bottom one first. Clearly, we're going to get a 14 millimeter socket. Breaker bar if need be. These are on here pretty tough. So you just want to make sure that you get a good grip on it, so that way you can get it loose like that. The whole caliber pin does come out, so don't be scared because you took out the whole thing. That's just how these work. It's just not a bolt, it's the whole caliber pin. Now, as you see here, I'm trying to fit the socket on top of the first one. I'm turning the bottom one with my hand. That's the caliber pin, needs grease. But the top one, there's not a lot of access room to it because of the brake fluid line. So what I had to do is use a wrench, of course, open-handed, and grab a 14 millimeter once again and take it off, or just loosen it that way. And then also a trick to keep that from popping up. You don't even have to tighten it. Just stick the bolt. We'll say the bolt for right now, and back in. So that doesn't pop up. But yeah, so you just got to kind of just break it free. You can see here, I'm going to get in here pretty tight. Probably hit my elbow pretty good. Boom. There we go. So yeah, after you break it free, and you rest up from hurting your elbow, then you have the access to just kind of like, I turned it just a couple more turns, but it's just to make sure it's loose in there. But you can just see how easy that is to, it's not really kind of hard at all. I'm doing that with one hand. So at that point, you can grab the other piston out, of course, and then now you can lift up and pull the whole thing out at the same time. So the bolt will come out with it, and I pull back the little bush so it just doesn't have anything there holding it. Usually you have a bungee cord or something like that. You can hang that up. I just put it off to the side where it's not stressing the brake line. But I don't have a bungee cord just handy like that. I should have one, but I don't. So that was the first part of getting to the brakes there. Wasn't too hard, wasn't too bad. It's just making sure you have the right tools. So then next, I'm kind of gonna show you how to get these brakes out, because they are a little different. They have like a little clamp on. They clamp on the outside of the caliber. So if you have like a little screwdriver flathead, you can kind of pry and push the one brake in that sticks onto the caliber, and then eventually it'll come out. Now the other brake on this one, it stays on the rotor. It doesn't really go on the caliber like that. So if you happen to don't see the other one, it's on there on the back, and you can do the same thing. You can use a flathead to get in there and pry that thing off of there. And I was just struggling because I couldn't get an opening. So I pull back with your hand first, see if your hand can do it. If your hand can do it, then try to pry in there, because you don't want to mess with that rotor, that metal on metal contact. So, but that one came out too as well. And then that's the backside brake. So usually the backside brake has like a brake wear sensor on there. You want to take that sensor off. That's the sensor right there. It's on top. It hangs on top. And then you want to move it over to the new brake if you have the sensor and it's usable, because sometimes those sensors get pretty weak and it's hard to put on the new brake. So if you have it, put it on there, and if you bought the ones that come with new sensors, then go ahead and just use that new sensor. But yeah, that has to go on there. I'm also putting a little grease on the brackets, just so that the brakes bounce a little bit and they're not in there stiff. Of course, it goes on the back side of the brake, the grease as well. And that's kind of what you want it looking like. And I'm going to try to show you the process of putting it in, so that way you can kind of see. So clearly right now it's not going in right. And I'm like, what's going on? Oh yeah, because I'm putting in the brake the wrong way. So you always want to be able to see the numbers. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So we got some numbers here. Wait a minute. We got to find the right position. Boom, better. And I'm trying my hardest not to, because I have grease on my hand. So I'm just trying not to grab the front of the brake and then, do it like that. So that way the brake doesn't get greasy. That would be not good either. But I finally got it. Set the phone down. And then I'm going to show you here in 2 seconds on basically what you want to do, because there is a slight maneuver. But you definitely want to go to the bottom first of the clip first. Go to the bottom and then press in at the top. If you go to the top, it may work, but it's just easier for me to do it that way. And then you see you still have your wear sensor on there, your brake wear sensor, and you're good. Make sure it's flush on the back of that rotor too as well. So that way you know it's not going to have any chance of falling out. So now at this point, we're going to take one of the old brakes and put it in front of the compressor, the brake compressor. And we're going to compress the brake compressor completely fat with our C-clamp. So that way, once we put in the new brakes, definitely can fit on there, and it'll feel like a new ride when you're braking. And you can still see that piston, that caliber piston in there hanging. We're about to do something with that here in a second, so don't go anywhere. But yeah, so now we got it compressed fully down, and then you'll know once it's fully compressed, because it won't let you turn anymore. There's not a secret, or how do I know? It's literally won't let you turn, and then you just untwist and take it off. And you see it's flat as day. So before I get ready to put that in there, I'm going to put some more grease on the back of the clip brake. I like to call it the clip brake because they have clips kind of on the back, and they go into the caliber a certain way. So this is another good example to show you how to make sure that the numbers are showing. You just want to act like you're putting it on there, and then make sure you have the brake in the right way. And the clips on the back, they're not fragile. They're easy to maneuver. So if they bend too easily, that's because they have to get on the caliber itself. So don't be afraid if it's like too fragile for you. That's how they are. They're made, and they're sturdy too. So, and then you'll get it on there, and it'll look a little bit like so. And it hangs in there. You don't have to hold it up or anything like that. So then next, we'll put some grease on the caliber pins to make sure those push back in and out easily and smoothly. You don't want those too dry, which it was before. And then boom, now it's all greased up in there. And so with the maneuver, with the brake already in, what you're going to do is you're going to line up the caliber pin. And that's how that brake should look. Line up the caliber pin. Yeah, and it's hard to do with two hands. But basically, you're going to line it up first and kind of lean it towards the top. Push it in, and then you can slide down with the brake still on there. And boom, bada bang. So one more time. Find it. Slide it down more at the top, and you'll be able to get it in there simply. Yeah, and then at that point you want to grease up the other caliber pin because it's gonna need it. Then you can put it back into the caliber and tighten the top and the bottom of the that's a good amount of grease. I just wanted to show you what it's going to be looking like here. And this job didn't take any longer than 20-30 minutes. It's the rear brakes. As long as you got a jack stands, tire iron, a good tire iron, and a good socket set. I mean, this doesn't take a super mechanic to do for you, if it's the rear brakes, you know. And then I'm gonna lock it back down, just tighten it back down with the 14mm in the socket. Like I said, it's not that hard. You don't want to go overzealous with it because you can't strip those bolts, those pistons. So you just want it tight. And this is the same thing. You don't really have to. I didn't unloosen it too much, so that means I don't have to tighten it back too much. So as soon as I felt that lock, I just went as hard as I can right there. Boom. And I know it's in there. And then I also like to grab and play with the caliper, make sure it's not sliding too much, but it has a little wiggle play. So there you are. Brakes are done. See you on the next one.